What's going on, everybody? Zack Rosenblatt here at my apartment with Mike Kaye, recording the latest episode of the No Huddle Show. Maggie is here as well. I don't know where she went.
Don't sell yourself short. This is kind of a house. It's kind of a townhouse.
It's like a townhouse.
It's a tweener. It's a tweener.
It's a tweener.
It can play in a 3
position.
It can play in a 3-4. It can play in a 4-3. We're just not sure what it's best at.
Exactly. We're back. Our first official off-season pod. We're going to be doing a little looking ahead. There's still some coaching search stuff to talk about. The most newsy thing to happen since we last talked to you guys was Corey Unlin kind of surprisingly leaving. Maybe the fact that he's leaving isn't a surprise, but that he was hired as a defensive coordinator for the Lions. I mean, it makes sense if you think about Matt Patricia and him got their start together with the Patriots. I think Unlin has the personality of a guy who could run a defense. He won't call plays there anyway. I'm sure he'll probably coach up defensive backs or something like that. But what'd you make of that when you saw that news?
He's a charming guy, and I think he can work a room, and I think that helps you when you're basically a pre-game coordinator. You know, you're working to fit the pieces in. You're not necessarily calling the plays. He's a guy that there are players in that locker room who really appreciated him, the ones that mattered, and Roddy McLeod, Malcolm Jenkins, I guess Jalen Mills. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate and say this was a situation where if he didn't get the job, maybe he's not back, a Sean McDermott situation. But I think this is a situation where everybody kind of worked. It worked out for everybody in the end. I think it was time for a new voice in the DB room. I think Tim Houck has done a pretty good job with the safeties. I'd expect him to stay. But I think from a DB coach standpoint, I think the mixture of Jim Schwartz and Corey Unlin got a reputation for playing favorites, and I'm wondering if the strategy towards the cornerback specifically changes now. I think
they might revamp that room completely. So,
right. Yeah. That was my second point.
Yeah.
I think this is coming at the right time as the Eagles could potentially move on from Rodney McLeod, Malcolm Jenkins, Ronald Darby, and Jalen Mills. It gives them a fresh start and some fresh eyes.
If not, Sidney Jones and Rasul Douglas also. Who are
right.
Basically there's only a couple guys under contract even left at those positions. You made a list a couple days ago of some potential candidates. Any of them that you're particularly fond of?
Pay attention to the Browns coaching staff.
Because they're revamping it now with Stefanski there.
Right. Steve Wilkes is still up to retain his job as the defensive coordinator there. You might know Steve Wilkes from his one-year stint with the Arizona Cardinals. Before that, disastrous stint. Still probably should have been given a little bit more time, but whatever. Anyway, the point is, before that, he worked with the Panthers. He was a defensive coordinator, and before that, he was the defensive backs coach. From the people that I've talked to in the league, he is revered as one of the top defensive backs coaches in the league. Very smart, very cerebral, really understands technique very well and teaches technique very well. James Bradbury is a guy that he worked with. He's the guy that developed Josh Norman before he completely spun off in Washington. He's got a very good reputation. The guy under him who I'd be interested in would be Dwayne Walker, mostly because of his experience in developing young defensive backs, especially guys that are drafted high and have high expectations. Excuse me. Denzel Ward, Jalen Ramsey, Greedy Williams, AJ Boye, not AJ Boye, Aaron Colvin. He's had some stops where he's developed his position very, very well and gotten the most out of guys. He also has a connection to Andrew Berry with the Browns. He has a connection to Tim Houck. They were on the same coaching staff at UCLA together. He would be probably the smartest move. He'd also probably be the most long-term. He's not a guy who's trying to kind of climb the ladder, it seems. Very content with being a defensive backs coach. He understands cover 3. He understands cover 2. He's coach press man. Just a versatile background. The other guy we keep talking about is Chris Richard.
Yeah, I was just about to mention him. No, there hasn't been any buzz about him really going anywhere yet.
Which is crazy because a couple of years ago he was
the guy. Yeah.
The guy. And to me, it'd be a smart hire, especially if you were going to target somebody like a Byron Jones in free agency, have a guy he's familiar with.
That might be a sign that they do plan on going after Byron if they were to go after Rashard.
Right. I think, I've been asked a lot about the backup quarterback position, and my response has always been it depends on who the quarterback's coach is, it depends on who the OC is for that role to change, because, had they hired Kevin O'Connell, you're probably getting Case Keenum. If they hire Jim Caldwell, you're probably getting Joe Flacco. Guys that are familiar with the system that can help.
Hey, local guy, Joe Flacco.
Yeah. I still think that's a very legitimate possibility.
Really? Joe Flacco?
Uh-huh.
I'm also intrigued. I don't think it'll happen, but I'm intrigued at the idea of Mariota. Because the Eagles are like, if you're a backup quarterback, I think you should want to go to Philadelphia anyway.
Yeah.
Especially if you're someone who wants to be a starter again in the league, sign a 1-year deal. I know Wentz played all 16 games, but out of all the quarterbacks in the league, you look at who might get hurt and what coaches are going to put you in the best position to look good. And I think Mariota has the talent to be good here in a pinch.
It's funny you say that, because I was thinking about this the other day. Outside of wide receivers coach and the wide receiver position, if you're somebody who is involved in offense and you have to rehab your image, I think the Eagles are the number one destination, because guys have come in here and done. Look, no one wanted to touch John DeFilippo when he got fired by the Browns. No one. And he had to take a demotion, and he was the quarterback's coach. And all of a sudden, 2 years later, he's the biggest name in football.
Now he's gone downhill again since he left, but he got those jobs.
Look at Frank Reich. I mean, Frank Reich was a failed offensive coordinator too.
Yeah.
Came here, rehabbed his image, suddenly a really great head coach candidate. Corey Unlin, okay, whatever. So I think overall, my point is, I got off on a little bit of a tangent, but matching personnel to coach isn't necessarily a home run, but I think, like you said, if they hire Rashard, you've probably got a better chance of getting Byron Jones, because he's the one that developed him.
Yeah. Flipping to the other side, I imagine that job will probably get filled after, unless they really have someone in mind already after the other two that they've been looking for. We can touch on OC in a second, but wide receiver coach Paul Domowitz of the Inquirer reported that it sounds like they might be interested in Hines Ward.
It sounds like there's mutual interest,
or at least
right?
or they're interested in the jobs, kind of.
Yeah.
It sounds like Hines Ward talked to some people in the building, and Bobby Engram. Engram was a pretty good NFL receiver. Ward, everybody knows who Hines Ward is. He's been with the Jets. Engram has more experience as a coach.
Yeah,
a lot more experience. They're intriguing names. They're guys. I think you want guys who your players can be like, all right, this guy has done it. Like Hines Ward, especially, they're going to listen to him. And by all accounts, he's a really smart. When he was a player, everybody talked about how smart he was with route running and blocking, and he has an acting role in The Dark Knight Rises where the whole stadium's blowing up. He was never a kick returner, so I never believed that, by the way. But anyway,
is acting on your resume?
He was in Dark Knight Rises. That's pretty cool for a coach.
Yeah, he was.
It was a bad movie.
And he was a quarterback in college.
That's right. And quarterbacks that everybody's always talking about, they see the field better. But yeah, so he'd be interesting. I don't know if those are actual legitimate candidates or not. But
so here's the thing with Bobby Engram. So Bobby Engram, unless his contract expired yesterday, the 14th, when most coaches' contracts kind of go kaput, the Eagles wouldn't be able to talk to him unless the Ravens. Yeah. And right now he's a tight ends coach. So he's been with the Ravens for 5 years. He spent the first 4 years as a wide receivers coach. Then they hired David Culley, who's a former Eagles wide receivers coach, actually probably the longest tenured wide receivers coach they've had in recent memory. He moved to tight ends. That offense was based around tight ends, and you saw a lot of production from those tight ends. So clearly he knows how to develop receivers, helps them with their route running and their technique. He's got more experience than Hines Ward, but less kind of accolades as a player. But I think either one of them could bring in, like you said, I think relatability is important. And we have to remember, look, Doug Pederson likes hiring former NFL players. Tim Houck.
Philip
Daniels. He kept Justin Peele. He kept Deuce Staley. Those are guys that he likes to bring in. And while Greg Lewis didn't work out, there's no saying that other guys couldn't. I'm still in favor of them hiring Ike Hilliard, who was with the Redskins for 5 years.
Yeah. So I mean, the fact that there are names coming out, at least means that they're out there exploring and talking to people right now. Most likely, Engram's name coming up is interesting just because, like you said, they would have permission, but somebody floated that out there for a reason, you would think. I don't know
for
what
sure.
that is. But offensive coordinator, there hasn't really been any noise around it lately. It seems like this might just be a product of people guessing, but there's less noise around Jim Caldwell, where it seemed like he was maybe the favorite for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Schefter, I don't even think he was reporting this. He just kind of mentioned that Ben McAdoo is available, which would be pretty hilarious if they hired the guy they wanted to hire over Doug as the offensive coordinator. That would feel like more of a Jeffrey Lurie hire than a Doug Pederson hire, which I think is interesting. But I think we're going to, based on who they hire, might be pretty telling about whether this was a Jeffrey Lurie or a Doug Pederson hire, actually.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Like if it's Press Taylor, then it was Doug's decision, for example.
Yeah,
which I don't think it will be, or I don't think it should be, but if Deuce Staley, I would think that would be a Lurie decision also.
So I'm of the mind that you shouldn't, as a player as a reporter.
Wait, you played in the NFL?
Yeah, sorry,
I didn't know about this.
No, if you've seen my 40, you know I haven't. As a reporter who's covered a team where an owner has forced coaching moves, I'm not in favor of it. I think it creates an unneeded anxiety amongst the staff. It creates an unneeded tension between the hired candidate and the head coach. It undermines the entire logic of being a head coach. That said, sometimes I think Doug needs to be saved from himself. Maybe that's a poor choice of words, but he is loyal to a fault. It's abundantly clear. And I think, look, firing Groh and Walsh were the right moves. It's unquestionable. Were they set up to succeed? Turn to the previous podcast to figure that one out. But, yeah, I think they need to go outside. I think Deuce is ready. I've said this several times. I think Deuce is ready to be an offensive coordinator. I just don't think it benefits the team having the same 4 or 5 voices in the room when they're constructing the offense. Because what is he saying? Or what is Doug Pederson ignoring that he is saying that makes him that much more viable of a voice and new perspective on this offense? We've seen this offense be stagnant with him. How can we be sure that it's not going to be with him in a higher role? You know what I mean?
I guess the devil's advocate opposite side of that would be, I imagine players are more likely to listen to him than Mike Groh before him. Like they really love him in that locker room, I would say.
From what I've heard, there have been situations where coaches have come into this locker room and there have been guys that have, veteran players who have thought they've known better. That was a complaint of one of the coaches that has previously left the organization, is that some guys think they know everything. And I think having
players?
Yeah. I think having an authoritative voice, a guy who's been at that level, who's succeeded at that level, will, to your point, will enforce information better.
And beyond that, I also wonder if Deuce gets passed over again, if he's like, all right, well, I don't have a path to getting promoted here anymore. I'm going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I think that would be the move.
For him,
yeah, for him. And
that would be a big loss for the running back room. That's why I wonder if they think about that. I know you don't want to hire, so you don't want to promote, so you don't lose somebody necessarily. He has to be the guy, but I think that's something to think about at least.
I think when we're talking about these candidates, as much as I say I think they should go in from an external candidate standpoint, Deuce is maybe 3rd or 4th on the list if you're including those external candidates, and that's not like a big divide. You know what I mean? So let's say your top 3 choices are Jay Gruden, Jim Caldwell, and Ben McAdoo. Jim doesn't want to be an OC again. Jay Gruden doesn't want to be an OC again. He just wants to take a year off, and then maybe
he wants to call plays himself.
Right. Your choices are Ben McAdoo or Deuce Staley. Yeah, Ben McAdoo flamed out hard in New York.
Nobody's hired him since then.
Yeah,
he's ready to come back now,
right, yeah, that was the term used by Adam Schefter. I'm very happy that I'm ready to, get
$1 million.
Win $1 million, write the next great screenplay. Not sure that I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? So, that to me is a red flag. And look, I think Deuce would move mountains in ways that Grow wouldn't, from the standpoint of relatability, from the standpoint of commanding respect, from
Press conferences, yeah.
Yeah, press conferences, he can definitely nail those. But again, I mean, where's the change-up? And maybe the change-up comes from you hiring a very good wide receivers coach who's like Mike Groh, who can offer suggestion, in a way that maybe that's the new voice and that's how you sell it. But to me, I think I've convinced myself that Jim Caldwell is the Joe Burrow of potential candidates. Like, he is the guy, in my opinion, who would invoke the most change.
I will say, I think Jason Garrett, his contract ended with the Cowboys yesterday. So if the Eagles he's interviewing with the Giants apparently, maybe they don't let him leave the building, but it'd be interesting if the Eagles tried to talk to him at least. But yeah, I think that's kind of all there is on the coaching search. There hasn't really been that much. Like we said, it's all just rumors and stuff, but I'm very curious to see how quickly they don't need to rush by any means unless they're competing with the Giants for a guy. But I would imagine that gets sorted out within the next week or two, probably, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd expect it to be done before the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
From an OC standpoint, I don't know if because a lot of times when you're at the Senior Bowl, the position coaches kind of are out there looking for jobs. So,
all right. So I did promise on the last one we went too long, so we said we'd do it on the next episode that we'd go through the roster and go stay or go.
Breaking news.
What?
Sorry, as you're saying this, T. Higgins, who seems like the most likely guy, good wide receiver to be
available at 21.
21 is just declared for the NFL draft. So,
I thought it was gonna be something bigger than that.
I know, but I like building the suspense.
All right, to a disappointing conclusion.
Hey, people I mean, unless you're talking about Henry Ruggs, you're pretty much disappointing everybody anyway.
Like I said on Twitter, I'm pretty sure most Eagles fans would give up a limb in order to get Henry Ruggs to the Eagles, and they're all like, "Yep."
It's January, kids. Come on.
Yeah, for a while. That's true. It is only January. All right, so we'll go through the roster, and we'll go with the stipulation that this is what you think will happen.
Okay, as opposed to what I would do?
Yeah, let's go with that direction. So it's a little more predictive. All right, should we start offense or defense?
Let's go defense, because that seems to be where the meat of everything is.
Yeah, cool. All right, we'll start on the defensive line. Start at defensive end. Jannard Avery, stay. I think that's an obvious stay.
We're doing guys that are actually still not free agents.
Yeah, we're going like everybody important on the roster.
Okay, yeah, Avery staying.
Avery staying.
Are we talking about through training camp, or are we what?
Just the next season.
Okay, so week 1.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry.
Derek Barnett stay. Though I am curious. I mean, I'm sure they're gonna exercise the 5th-year option. This is gonna be a year where he has to prove that he deserves a big contract, though.
The thing is, the conversation. I mean, they're going to do it. I'd be very wary because
it'll be a pretty high number. Defensive ends make a lot of money.
Yeah, but it's also he's had some pretty notable injury woes too. So
and he's pretty undisciplined also.
Yeah,
he hasn't been as good as they needed him to be. I think he's been fine, but
I think he's a pretty good second defensive end. They need him to be a really good number one.
If you listen back going into the season, we said he needed to prove that he could be like a cornerstone, and he hasn't proven that yet.
If he's a 12-sack guy this year, they're probably winning 2 more games.
Yeah. All right, Vinny Curry. He's a little more interesting.
I think it's going to be like the Tim Jernigan situation where they tell him to go seek a deal. He doesn't have a great market, and then they bring him back probably around the draft. So, yeah, I think he stays.
I think he might go. I don't know if he's going to make a lot of money, but I think someone might offer him. He had a decent year. Decent enough to be a rotational guy somewhere.
Yeah, I agree.
Brandon Graham, stay. Sharif Miller. That's like pretty 50-50. I almost lean go, but it just depends on how many guys they draft or sign.
I didn't love the pick. He's a local kid, so I think
I feel like he can make it to the practice squad.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll be in the city of Philadelphia. if you mean stay, yeah. We'll go with stay. We'll go with stay.
Josh Sweat is a stay. We'll see what kind of role they expect out of him based on what they do again.
I expect him to be the third D end.
Yeah.
Unless they sign someone.
Let's see. Deshaun Hall and Joe Osman.
Go on.
Both of them?
Yep.
But Joe Osman, man, they love him.
Some news on him. I spoke to him. He should be ready for the offseason program, most likely in a limited role. He's making really good progress with the knee injury, supposedly.
He might have made the roster if he was if he was around over Deshaun Hall.
I would have taken that bet, yeah.
Yeah. All right, defensive tackles. Cox, obvious. Go. You know, they're not going to keep that guy. Bruce Hector, probably a go. There's no reason to keep him. Jernigan, I think he signed somewhere else.
Yeah, he's gone.
Anthony Rush, I think he stays. He showed enough, although we kind of felt the same way about... he feels like a Trayvon Hester type, where we were like, yeah, he won the game for them. They're going to keep him, and then they cut him. So, and they needed him later in the year. So.
They really did.
Yeah.
But maybe they learned their lesson, and that's why he stays.
Yeah. Malik Jackson, he's an obvious stay. I guess how confident they are in him returning to like full strength will depend on like how or if they invest in defensive tackle, though.
I'm interested to see if they ask him to take a pay cut because that could create some issues.
Yeah, I'm not sure he'd love that. Hassan Ridgeway, I know you just wrote about this. They should bring him back.
He's of their free agents that they can. We talked about it on the last podcast. Of their free agents that are worth signing to a 1-year prove-it deal, he makes a ton of sense because he's young. They have made a big deal out of investing in the defensive tackle room. He's better than Anthony Rush, so at worst, he's your third incumbent guy. He could fill that Jernigan role, I think, on the cheap, but I still think they're going to draft a defensive tackle relatively high. Yeah,
I did a 7-round mock, and I believe I had them picking one in the 3rd round, one of their comp picks, or I guess their 3rd-round comp pick. They kind of have to start developing someone that can be long-term next to Fletcher. I think they wanted that to be Jernigan, and then his whole back thing happened, and he hasn't really played that well.
And I think they've always looked at Malik as a 2 or 3 year answer. So, you know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't start next year and is more of a rotational.
Linebacker, Nigel Bradham has a $8 million club option, I believe, and they're almost definitely going to decline that, and he would have to come back on a much cheaper deal, which he won't.
Gone.
Yeah. He'll get some money somewhere.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, like, I didn't think Hicks would get... I mean, he's not the same kind of player as Hicks, but I didn't think Hicks would get the money he did, and then he did, so...
No one thought Hicks was
getting and then he played really well for the Cardinals.
Yeah, well, except when he was in coverage, but yeah.
But, I mean, his numbers were pretty ridiculous. TJ Edwards back. He'll probably be a starter next year. You don't really need to debate that, right? Same with Nathan Gary.
No, he's going.
Duke Riley will be back as the new Camus, and then Camus will be gone, I think we both think.
Yeah, he's definitely gone. Duke Riley...
go out on the best terms.
Duke Riley... went from a guy who was a bust on the Falcons to being a special teams captain by the time at the end on a new team that he'd only
his first year for a half a year. Yeah,
I mean it's pretty incredible. I'll have a story on that.
He clearly had an impact on the locker room. So.
He did, based on what. Stay tuned for my story next week.
Yeah, your guy Alex Singleton.
He's going to stay.
Compete for a roster spot in training camp.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that I think they feel comfortable with only on special teams, and that makes it very difficult to predict whether he's going to be on the roster. But if he becomes one of those guys who's just... Because, like, Duke can play on defense. They have just not trusted Alex at all on defense.
And did he get any snaps on defense?
Maybe, like, a handful.
Cornerback. This is a much more interesting one.
Yes.
Ronald Darby, I think we both...
Gone.
I mean, you hope he's gone if they bring him back again.
Like, I don't hope for anything, but I know he is gone.
Hope in terms... If I was an Eagles fan, I would say, I don't actually care what they do.
I think he's gone.
Yeah. I am curious to see... He'll probably have a 1-year prove-it deal. Someone will sign him because he has the tools. But
yeah.
Jalen Mills is close to 50-50, I think. They probably want to bring him back. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't, though.
Jim's here.
Yeah, I know.
Jim's here.
But I'm... Oh, man, I'm the one dying this time.
It's probably because of me.
Yeah, right. I think Mills is going to have interest in free agency, though. He's a solid number 2 corner with a lot of starting experience, a lot of playoff experience, good size, good tackler. So I think there's going to be... So if somebody offers him a contract the Eagles don't want to match, I don't think it's inconceivable that he leaves.
Yeah, I don't think it's inconceivable. His problem's going to be... They're going to have to, like, if he's not in the scheme where they believe he can pretty much do anything, he's going to have to play in a very zone-based defense. He just doesn't have the speed to go one-on-one. Yeah. And I don't know, man. It's he's going to be an interesting guy to watch. Also because he didn't really play a ton of games this year. So
played half the season, yeah.
Right. So if I'm him, I'm thinking to myself, if I can get a 2-year deal from the Eagles and then go back into that jar in a couple of years after I've had 2 healthy seasons, maybe it works. Because then you're also setting yourself where if Jim Schwartz leaves, you're kind of covered too. I'm going to say stay.
Yeah. I'm leaning go right now. If you ask me tomorrow, I might change my mind, though.
The great Jalen Mills debate.
Sidney Jones, I lean go just based on how many picks they have and thinking that they'll probably sign at least a veteran. I'd maybe just dump him on another team in a trade. I know he looked interesting at the end of the year, but I don't know. Yeah, I think him or Rasul are probably gone.
Yeah,
maybe not both of them, but
there's
both of them, but maybe not.
I would say there's a 25% chance that both of them are on the roster next year, like together.
Yeah. And I feel like Jones would be the more likely one to get rid of, although maybe Douglas gets more value on the trade market.
I think Douglas definitely has more value.
But again, like I don't think it would be shocking if both of them were gone next year also. Because like I said, they might as well revamp this group. They clearly don't trust Rasul. They didn't play either of those two guys in the last game.
Howie's kind of acknowledged that they have concerns at corner. So
yeah. And that was a year after saying we need to give these young guys time to develop. So
I think and
Sidney making like 3 good plays at the end of the year isn't enough to like abscond him.
Well, and Sidney's issue too is like at this point in his career, you'd like for him to be like the third corner, the nickel guy, and you have 2 guys who are better at nickel now in Crayvon LeBlanc.
And a lot of the best free agent corners are nickel corners.
Right. So. People have brought up Logan Ryan. He plays a ton at the nickel corner spot. And I was talking to our buddy Teron Davenport from ESPN, who covers the Titans now, and he says he loves playing nickel. A lot of guys want to play on the outside, and Logan Ryan likes to play inside.
Yeah.
So.
Even someone like Chris Harris, a lot of nickel, although he can play on the outside too. Yeah. Like the point being, they're going to have better guys than him.
Yeah.
Craig James is an interesting one. I think they bring him back for special teams at the least. He probably at best, hopefully, he's your 5th corner and not your top 4. But
yeah, he's your gunner, special teams player.
Case of emergency on defense.
Because Crayvon's not going to play on special teams anymore, from what I understand. Avonte Maddox isn't really that big on special teams either. You need one corner who's like one DB really, one or two DBs who are really just like gung ho about special teams. And Craig finished 2nd on the team in special teams tackles. He's part of that Fab 5 group on special teams with the 4 linebackers. So I think he's back. He's going to have to show a lot on defense during training camp, though.
So we both think Avonte and Crayvon will be back, obviously, but
they're strapped into roster.
Yeah. So what do you think the cornerback group looks like? You don't even need to say like what the draft pick or free agent would be, but like insert free agent player here. Like what do you think the 5-man group is next year?
Byron Jones, day 2 pick, Crayvon LeBlanc, Avonte Maddox are basically their dollar package, and then Craig James.
So you think they do get rid of Rasul and Sidney?
Yeah, if I'm Sidney and Rasul, I'm happy to leave. I got a ring.
Rasul in particular, I'm sure. Actually, both of them would probably be happy for a change of scenery.
Probably.
I think that and wide receiver, which we'll get to, are going to be the 2 most interesting.
That's why I wanted to save that offense for last.
Yeah. Safety, the 2 most interesting ones, maybe on the roster in terms of stay or go, are Malcolm Jenkins and Rodney McLeod. They're not both coming back, I think.
Yeah, I think that, well...
Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe if they bring back one, they bring back both, honestly. I don't know.
They can't let Rod hit free agency.
If they want him, if there's a chance they want him. Yeah.
They've spoken about a deal earlier in the year. It just didn't get done. Then they had the losing streak, and so it kind of lingered. Rodney wants to be here. Like, really, I don't know if Corey leaving is going to change anything, but McLeod's a former undrafted guy. Wasn't wanted, had an okay 4 years with the Rams, signed here, and probably had the best 2 years of his career. Last 2 years have been really up and down. I think he wants to stay here. I think he could take Malcolm's place as the leader in that secondary. They can't replace both of them in the same offseason. So if they're going to make a decision on Malcolm Jenkins and say, hey, we're not going to pay you, they need to put that money towards Rodney McLeod. I don't think Rodney McLeod had a great year. I don't think he had an awesome year. I think he was pretty inconsistent, despite what he told me. Of the 2, because he's not under contract, he's probably the more likely to go. Would not be shocked if he's the one sticking around and not Malcolm, though. Yeah.
I mean, the whole Malcolm thing is very interesting to me, because if he actually wants as much money as which has been leaked out, which I believe he thinks of himself that way, which is like a top 5 safety in the NFL, then they're going to let him go. There's no way they pay him that much money. Unless they structure it in a creative way, I guess. But
Well, and as we're talking about that, Grant Delpit from LSU, who would be the one safety I would definitely spend a first-round pick on, just declared for the NFL draft.
Eagles aren't the sort of team to draft a safety first.
Right. I mean, yes, correct. But
I don't think they've ever done it under Howie, actually.
Yeah, they haven't.
Yeah.
I mean, they haven't really. I don't think they've drafted a corner in the first round since Lito Shepherd. So, but maybe I'm forgetting somebody. But
I think that sounds right.
They spent a heck of a lot of second-round picks on him, though.
Yeah, second round's a big corner round for them.
Yeah, same with safety.
Yeah, Nate Allen. Okay.
That pick would have been so good if his Achilles didn't blow out towards the end. You remember that first year?
Yeah, he looked good.
Yeah.
All right, we can go to offense now. We'll start in the trenches. We'll start offensive line. Jason Peters, we both think, is gone.
Yep.
Although it's not gonna be an easy conversation trying to tell Jason Peters that they don't want him back.
That one's gonna come down to the wire too. I think there's gonna be suspense.
I bet even Doug pushes to bring him back, just knowing Doug.
We're gonna be at the combine, and I just know for a fact Howie and Doug are gonna string this along. I just, you know what I mean?
Be vague about him when we
like. Remember when they were really vague about Nate Sudfeld? That's how I think this Jason Peters thing's gonna be.
I mean, he's the new Darren Sproles in a way. Anyway, so Andre Dillard, Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks are all back. Isaac Seumalo is back. Jason Kelce, do you think he retires?
I think he's going to stick.
You think he sticks around?
I think this is going to be his
I think they
last
draft a center to develop to replace him, though.
Yeah, I mean, they would... realistically, if you look at Isaac's contract, he's the heir apparent to center. I think they like Herbig. I would not count on that.
I think they draft someone.
Yeah, or they sign a priority free agent. Like, I think there will be young competition at that center spot. I think what they like about Kelce is he's so unique of a body type, and finding that next guy that can move in the space the way he does, because he really does make a lot of their offense go, especially their running game. It's going to be, if they take a shot on a guy in the 5th round, I wouldn't blame them, but Isaac does seem to be the guy that they want to be. It doesn't mean he will be. It doesn't mean the plan can't change. But
Keep in mind, he had some really bad snapping issues whenever he's played center.
I agree. Look, I'm not. Look, I'll tell you. Asked me to talk about what I think's going to happen.
Yeah,
that's.
I think they used one of their 10 picks on a center. I don't know how early, but I think they used that.
Remember, they like centers that can play guard too. They like versatility, so it wouldn't shock me if they drafted a guard who can play center.
Yeah, that makes sense too. Big V is gone. He's going to get some money.
Can we talk about that for a second though? Because I've gotten a lot of pushback on that. I think he's gone too. I think he's going to get starter level right tackle money. I think a team like Cincinnati would love to have him. The only way I can see him sticking around is if they gave him a really good 2-year contract, so he could test free agency, and or if Kelce retires and you move Isaac inside, maybe he's interested in playing left guard. But, I don't know why you would want swing tackle money when you could probably get, at worst, mid-level right tackle money.
He's going to get a decent contract, I think. I think starting offensive linemen get good money.
I think he's going to be their biggest compensatory pick return. That'll be a bet.
That makes sense. Because the other one?
Rodney.
McLeod.
And Jalen, maybe.
Yeah, maybe Jalen. Because Jordan Howard will probably only get $4 million.
If they decline Nigel's option, he's also...
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, because he'd be unrestricted at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I think those would all be the most. I mean, Jason Peters if he signed somewhere else. Too.
Yeah.
All right.
Remember, they're only eligible to get 3. So, or is it 4 now?
I think it's 4. I believe it's 4.
Depends on how many people get signed though, too. So
yeah, I know, but the most you can get anyway is quarterback. Wentz coming back. Josh McCown. Probably
go.
Yeah. Nate Sudfeld.
Oh, as I was leaving your house, they talked about, I was listening to the radio, his injury, Josh McCown's injury is so ridiculously painful sounding.
He's going to be in bed for 6 weeks.
Yeah, he can't do anything. He can't, get up to get ice cream. The dude he can't fly on a plane. It's rough, man. And then after that 6 weeks, he's pretty immobilized still.
Yeah, he's out for 6 months or something like that was the total. He played with a torn hamstring, which
that's nuts.
He's a tough dude. Nate Sudfeld Probably not coming back, but I mean, it wouldn't be outlandish to think they like him enough to bring him back either.
So here's what's interesting about him to me. I think he's going to go into the market thinking, look, I want to be a number 2 quarterback. I have to climb this totem pole. It's been 4 years. Problem is where? You could say, hey, he could go to the Colts, but the problem is they could turn around and draft Jordan Love in the middle of the first round, and then you're behind not only Jordan Love, but you're probably behind Jacoby Brissett too. You could go to New England, which seems to be the posh thing to do if you're behind Brady.
I mean, that wouldn't be they'd probably draft someone too, you would think.
I mean, they have Jarrett Stidham too, so it's not like, you know what I mean? Like, Cody Kessler was the backup there all year, but it was because Jarrett Stidham basically was impossible to use at a moment's notice. Sorry to screech the table there. Maybe he goes to a place like the Dolphins. But the problem is look, the optics of the situation, he was set to be the number 2 guy. They've been training him to be this number 2 guy. Breaks his wrist. If they really believed in him, they could have waited out the month with Cody Kessler as the backup. I mean, if Bill Belichick feels comfortable with him, Doug Pederson probably should. And on top of that, he didn't play at all this year. So you're judging him based off of 25 throws that he made during the regular season, the 2 previous years, and then some preseason starts. Not great optics. So if I'm him, I try to come back on a 1-year deal if it's there. That said, the next guy who was not on the 53-man roster, who was on the practice squad, is Kyle Lauda, who basically has had the same career trajectory as Sudfeld through his first 2 years. To me, he's a good project number 3 guy. He's a local guy. He's got some arm talent. He had a really good preseason. He wouldn't have been cut if they didn't draft the Giants didn't draft Daniel Jones. Because it doesn't really make sense to have 2 young guys. But
and they love Alex Tanney up there. So
yeah, who knows why. He can do a lot of trick shots. But yeah, I side with you. I just wouldn't be shocked if he's back.
Yeah, I agree. Running back, Boston Scott, Miles coming back. Corey Clement. I think he's back in training camp. I don't know if he makes the team, though.
So I'm writing about this for the weekend. He's going to be a restricted free agent. If I'm the Eagles, I'm not tendering him.
Yeah, there's no reason to.
Now, they could tender him at the right of first refusal. That contract this year was $2.025 million, which is in line with the 4th year of a day 3 pick. The fourth year of a day 3 pick, like a guy. That's basically what Jalen Mills made this year. As a 7th round pick. Not really pricey. The thing is you could sign him for less than that. Almost definitely. I mean, his value has tanked over the last 2 years. He's only played 15 total games. Didn't have a carry last year. So, from an optic standpoint, you probably feel good that you can re-sign him to be the kick returner and be a special teams ace next year without having to worry about him having an offensive role. I doubt he has a huge market. Maybe somebody like Joe Douglas takes a flyer on him, but as of right now, I think he's back. I don't know if he makes the team through training camp.
Yeah, that would be what I think. Elijah Holyfield probably doesn't make the team unless he has like a really good training camp, but he'll be on the training camp roster at least.
What's interesting about him, Deangelo Henderson, who was on their practice squad for most of the year, didn't resign and ended up going to the XFL.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, because
they really didn't like that guy.
Yeah, I mean, well, the way it was spun to me was if they're bringing up Jay Ajayi, who has no burst left, and they're bringing up,
they didn't like him. Yeah. So why was he there?
Yeah, I mean, he was just a body, in training camp, on the practice squad, I guess.
Yeah,
just filling a role.
Jordan Howard, I lean towards go, but he's another guy that if a couple weeks go by and he doesn't get the offers he likes, he comes back here for $3 million or something.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that if from his standpoint, I would want to come back basically because I know what I could do in the system. Yeah, I know I'm not going to be the number 1 guy, but I just had a shoulder stinger. My market value's gone. I missed almost 9 games. Look, they got this young kid that they're going to use like as a bell cow. They also have this other guy who's lightly sprinkled in. I can rehab my value. I can also keep some fresh legs going to the playoffs, maybe have some moments in the playoffs, be successful, and then go sign another contract and get a nice 2 or 3 year deal elsewhere. to me, it makes a ton of sense to sign him to a 1-year deal.
I agree. Wide receiver, the most fun.
Depending on your point of view.
The top, Shelton Gibson, who will be on the training camp roster again.
Will he be on the Week 1 roster? No.
But I didn't expect to have another training camp with Shelton Gibson. Is all.
I'm excited about it, to be honest. New number, new life.
Robert Davis and or Deontay Burnett.
I think Robert Davis is a decent shot at being on the practice squad, maybe the 5th wide receiver. I'm intrigued by Deontay Burnett.
Me too.
It depends
on what they do. They're not going to keep like 7 receivers, obviously. So it kind of just depends on how many new guys they add and who they get rid of.
So as quarterbacks grow and mature, typically they get a little bit more say in personnel. Depending on how Carson viewed Davis and Burnett during that run, I mean, he really got to see what they were, especially on
Burnett had a 40-yard catch.
Yeah, I mean, he trusted him basically right away. I think a lot of that had to do with Josh McCown. If Josh McCown's the wide receivers coach, I think it's a pretty safe bet that Burnett's the number 5 guy. None of these guys should be more than number 5 on the roster.
Yeah. Greg Ward, I think he's back.
He's back, probably the 4th wide receiver.
Yeah. Arcega-Whiteside obviously is back. DeSean Jackson.
He's probably going to be the 5th wide receiver.
Arcega-White. Oh, yeah. I mean,
unless he really shows something.
I mean, they should be going into this like he's a guy fighting for a roster. Maybe you don't cut him, but it needs to be okay. Anything he could give you at this point is gravy because he looked bad the first year.
He's probably the most endangered 2nd-round pick the Eagles have had going into a 2nd year that I can remember.
Well,
really,
Jaquan Jarrett would be the other one.
Yeah, no, I mean he is really in the Jaquan. Yeah, since Jaquan, he is really
because they cut him after 1 year, I believe, right?
I thought he was here for 2, but here, yeah, you use your search muscles for that one.
Comes up right away because there's nobody else spelled a Jaiq.
He actually had a decently long career. Yeah, he was there for
47 games. Okay, it was 2 years. Well, he only played 1 game in 2012.
Right.
Was he cut during that season?
No.
Yeah, he was cut in September. So he played 1 game and that was cut.
Yeah, he played. Yeah, because if you remember, I think he was there for 2 games, and then they just.
I'll never forget them having him cover Larry Fitzgerald in the playoffs. Woo! All-time bad move.
Yeah.
Bad job by you. All right, DeSean Jackson. I think they bring him back. Probably will have to be at a reduced pay, and I'm curious if DeSean is willing to do that or not. I would think he would be.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody's going to give him more money than the Eagles already are.
I think he's got some unfinished business here. Yeah,
I am intrigued by him as like a part-time guy, and you also get a speed guy either in the draft or Robbie Anderson, so you can actually have multiple guys with speed for once, which would be nice. But my gut says he's back.
I think they're kicking.
He was still a pretty active part of the team and behind the scenes, actually.
Yeah, he's admired by the young wide receivers. I think they're going to keep 6 wide receivers next year. I think that's smart given their injury history. DeSean will be used a lot more in the slot next year, is what I'd imagine. So you would have Greg Ward, you'd have DeSean Jackson rotate in the slot. Probably whoever you draft, you probably want to draft a guy who can play 3 spots. You don't really want a J.J. Arcega-Whiteside situation. And I think those top 2 guys are going to be new guys. Spoiler alert.
Alshon Jeffery. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be easy to get rid of him, but I don't see any way we can bring that guy back.
I think...
and Nelson Aguilar, we both think he's gone too.
Yeah, you don't even
talk about that. Yeah.
But with Alshon, I think you're going to see a few like NBA-style trades or just guys just taking the loss. It's...
Just biting the bullet of the contract.
Yeah, because the cap keeps rising, so technically you're, and they're probably going to have roughly $30 million anyway. You just take the bullet. I mean, you sometimes you got to, I think Howie Roseman.
There's some team out there that's desperate for a receiver that'll take him for nothing.
The issue is him passing physical, right? So if he's traded,
Well, but Aqib Talib was traded while he was hurt.
Yes, he was. But he was also acquired to basically become a free agent. Like they had no plans of using him.
Well, if the Eagles are attaching a draft pick, that could be the case again in theory.
Yeah, and they have 10 picks. Like if it were me, I would attach one of the 2 4th-round compensatory picks.
That's what I was thinking. Probably one of the 4ths.
And and then roll.
And then in theory, the team that's taking him maybe is getting a future number 1 receiver. But even if we all know that he's not actually that anymore.
Yeah,
Joe Douglas loves that guy.
I don't think he's that
at the Jets.
Yeah, I don't think he's that at this point.
No. But whatever. I just don't see him back. All right. That's everybody. Did I miss anybody on IR?
Oh, you missed the specialists.
They're all coming back.
Interested to see if Cam Johnson gets that
Jordan
extension.
Mailata? I didn't say him.
Yeah, Jordan Mailata.
I think they want him to be the swing guy, but I think it's pretty premature to think he could be that.
I mean, he's never played a meaningful game
that's what I'm
ever.
saying.
You know what I mean? Like,
And he's
ever.
been on IR both years. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to add about coaching search or anything going forward before we go? Eagles Extra, sign up.
Yeah, do that. You'll find out about the coaching search when it happens. I would say
Harold Carmichael going in the Hall of Fame, by the way, which is cool.
Yeah, pretty dope. Keep an open mind with position coaches. The OC, I think you can jump to immediate conclusions for the most part, mainly because you have to look at his optics, and he's not really calling plays, so you're more so probably debating whether or not his philosophies and his background fit what would work or extend or evolve the offense. But with position coaches, I would say be a little patient. You can look at their track record. Look, Corey Edlin had a glowing resume before he got to Philly. That was a huge hire back when Chip hired him. That people were raving about that. Bill Lazor was a guy a lot of people raved about. Yeesh. So again, just be patient. I know it's tough.
All right, we'll wrap up on that note. Thanks for listening, guys. Sign up for Eagles Extra. Leave us some comments. Write us some reviews. And we'll talk to you soon.